welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Ayman. If you do know me, howdy, we are back today. Now, I'm not even gonna spew any bullshit whatsoever. Subscribe, like, turn on the bell notifications, etc, etc, etc. Let's just get into the video right now. And I'm gonna throw a scenario at you guys and just tell me how creepy and ominous this is. Imagine you've just boarded the train and you're going through the carriages looking for a place to sit, and you finally enter another carriage and you see a long trail of blood about 12 feet long. It's 1985, so it's not like trains had emergency stops at that point, so the passenger waited and another passenger came on board and saw the trail of what looked like someone's extremely bloody body being dragged away. There was no one in sight that looked like they had been wounded, because whoever it was either on the brink of death or already dead due to all the blood loss. That is the premise for episode 6 of True Crime Thursday, the case of the trail of blood on the train. But before I get into this movie plot of a case, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. And I'm sure if you're on YouTube a lot, then you've already heard of it, but if you haven't, Skillshare is basically the perfect online space for creatives to learn so many new things and skills, or pursue your passions further and improve on what you already know. The website has thousands of classes with topics in photography, film and video, which is great if you want to know how to edit better or make more engaging content. There's also classes for productivity, graphic design. I can literally go on, there are thousands. Now thankfully there are classes for every single skill type, whether you're a noob or a pro, and most classes are way under an hour long, so it's very easy to fit into your schedule as well. So for me, who's a major night owl, I like taking the classes late in the night. So a few days ago, I watched the first 3 lessons in Thomas Frank's productivity class about how to build a system that brings out your best, and that took me all of about 20 minutes. And shout out to you guys if you already know who Thomas Frank is. Anyway, as someone who's really been struggling with being productive with the added factor of depression, one thing I really took away from the second class was all about having a professional mindset and not waiting for inspiration to come to you before you start working or doing whatever it is that you need to do. The professionals work by a schedule. They don't just do their work whenever they feel inspired. When you're disciplined about your work, inspiration tends to strike you more anyway. So I'm really trying to implement that into my life and making videos, hence, the extra upload of the weekend. Personally, I just think it's a really cool tool. There are no ads, thank God. They upload new classes all the time, and you can become a member and have unlimited access for less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. So obviously, I thought I would share the love with you guys. So the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free trial of premium membership, so you can explore your creativity any way you want. And if you do, you have to comment below and tell me which classes you want to do or have done so we can discuss it together. Anyway, back to the case. The victim. 35-year-old Janet Maddox worked as a part-time social worker with Birmingham Social Services and had recently separated from her husband Peter 2 years beforehand. Now, despite no longer being married, the couple were very good friends and met regularly. Looks-wise, she was about 5'2", skinny and quite fashionable. But still, she was 5'2". It wouldn't have been hard for someone to just overpower her, like that is short. Now, Janet lived alone and would occasionally hire a male escort here and there, which I mean, do you, Janet? Everyone has needs. Now, everyone around Janet liked her. She was described as funny, sweet, and always willing to help. Now, I wish I had more information about what she was like, her upbringing, her jobs, where she went to school, but because the case happened all the way back in the 80s, there's just not a lot of information about her. There's usually not that much information about people unless they're like a public figure of some kind, so I'm sorry about that. Hello, Nini, back at it again, I see. Either way, let's move on to the case. Now, it was the 20th of March, 1985. Janet took the train to London to meet her ex-husband so they could go to a back appointment that she had. The couple had been in a car accident 5 years prior, so Janet had sustained injuries from that. After the appointment, they spent the day together, going for a movie, picking up some gifts, and so on until she dropped Peter to Liverpool Street Station at around 8 p.m. Peter then got onto the 8:35 p.m. train back home, and Janet then took a cab to Houston and took the 9:02 p.m. train to Birmingham. This train was an 8-car center corridor stop, and this specific train had 20 stops along the journey, and had she just waited a few minutes, she could have boarded a faster train and perhaps still been alive. The witnesses remember seeing her sat by the window alone in the second carriage. Around 11:10 p.m., Dennis Overton entered the second carriage and saw the bloody scene in front of him. About 20 minutes later, Paul Spindler entered the same carriage, and both men decided to call a rail chargeman at the next stop. The police got there and the train was quickly taken out of service, with the victim still nowhere to be found. Now keep in mind, from the time Janet got on the train to the time it reached Birmingham, around 300 people had boarded the train, so that's a lot of people to narrow down to just one. Constable Alan Perkins rode the train from Birmingham to London to look for clues, and about 3 miles from the Northampton Castle station, Perkins found Janet's body between the railway tracks. Her neck and face were covered with blood, and her tights and panties were by her ankles. There was definitely no sign of life. On to the investigation. Now, out of the 300 people that boarded the train, about a third of them came forward trying to help the police. Investigators spoke to the driver and guard of the train, but they were no help whatsoever. Thankfully, 2 of the passengers helped authorities create a photo fit of the man they thought could have killed Janet. They described him as having long, shaggy brown hair and a weathered face, but that could have been because of the injuries he sustained with Janet fighting back. Now, the case was so big and so horrific that the superintendent and detective chief inspector also got involved. Now, when Janet's body was examined, autopsy results showed that she had died from a stab wound to the neck. And it wasn't just any stab wound. The first or second stab had severed the jugular vein, paralyzing Janet from the neck down, so she was completely defenseless as she continued getting stabbed by this monster of a person. Her handbag was found next to her body, also filled with bloodstains, and the 15 or 20 pounds she had on her had been stolen. The stab wound caused really bad hemorrhaging, which is why she was drenched in blood and why there was so much blood in the carriage. There were also extensive lacerations and wounds around her groin area. Bits of her belongings were found along the track, showing the murderer had thrown them out at different intervals. Now keep in mind, at this point the police had no idea whose body this was. We do, because we have that hindsight, but they did not. So after finding a picture of her in her bag, they put that on the news, and they soon found out that it was Janet Maddox. Upon further investigation of the scene, authorities found blood prints on the door, the window, and there was a size 8 boot mark in the blood on the floor. Now the left footprint seemed to be more dominant than the other ones, meaning the killer had a limp. A British rail employee said he saw Janet still in her seat by the time he got off at Bletchley. Paul Jackson, another passenger, saw a man and a woman in the second carriage after leaving Bletchley station, and it's assumed that's the last time she was seen alive. Now that we've gone through the investigation, let's talk about the perpetrator. The way Janet was killed was so brutal, with seemingly no motive other than robbery. But who would go after someone just to steal 15 pounds? Like, it seems so excessive and violent for what they got out of it. Like, what monster would even do that? The more inquiries the police made, the more people's eyewitness reports were pointing to the same guy. Looks-wise, he was described as quite young, only 5'6", blonde streaks in his hair, carrying a radio player and a walking stick. Now, this sus-ass person was first seen at Milton Keynes station, and when the fateful train arrived, he asked if it was going to Rugby station before getting on. Now, at Northampton station, 2 workers saw a motionless woman sitting in her seat, and the man in the carriage looking at them with glazed eyes before going back inside and closing the door and continuing to stare at them through the window. Now, I'm guessing Janet was already dead at this point, and he had just propped her up to make it look like she was still alive, but maybe sleeping. Now, when he got off at Rugby station, several people saw him playing one of his cassette tapes, and the fact he had blood on his trousers. He eventually got on a train going to Glasgow, where another passenger asked him why he had blood on his hands, and he said he had fallen out of a window. The 2 got off at Glasgow station, and with all this information, the police were able to track down all the railway tickets from Glasgow that day. Out of the 3,000 tickets, only 1 was blood-stained. It was 15-year-old Jack Roy's. 15 years old! How do you commit a crime so horrific at 15 years old? Like, what trauma are you going through, Jack? What did Janet do to you? Shocked. Now, Jack had been arrested the year before for burglary, but the case had never been finalized. He was actually traveling from Glasgow in connection to his delayed bail, so maybe if they hadn't approved that, Janet would still be alive. Now, when he got home in Glasgow, the occupant Joanna asked him what had happened, and he said he was attacked by 3 men. Joanna replied saying, "You look as if you've committed a murder." Well, you're not wrong, Joanna. The police met with him and he said he had gone to Milton Keynes and then just come back home. They took a bunch of his belongings like his clothes, his walking stick, shoes, and his lock knife, which was later found out to be the murder weapon. At first, Jack said 2 men were bothering Janet and he intervened on her behalf and got knocked out, and when he woke up, everyone was just conveniently gone. Eventually, though, he broke down and then said that story was a lie and that the woman had actually jumped out of the train. But then, upon further interrogation, he actually admitted he had stabbed her in the neck while trying to take her purse. But apparently, he didn't even steal the money, but stole her 2 wedding rings and then dragged her body by the ankles and threw her out of the train. He denied removing her clothes and the money, but he definitely stolen the money since he had more money than when he had first embarked on his journey, and the maths added up. He was then arrested and charged with a murder on the 29th of March. Now, this case was a bit different than the other ones because it was solved. It isn't one of these unsolved cases where I can dish out 3 theories and you guys kind of contemplate what happened. We know what happened. We know who did this, and it was fucked. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below, and if Skillshare is something that interests you, then make sure to check out the link in the description box. You will not regret it, my friend. You will not regret it. Anyway, you guys, that is it from me. I'm also wearing a full face of new makeup, you guys, so it's all the makeup that I bought in the vlog, so I hope it looks nice. But yes, you guys, that is it for today's video. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. See you in the next one. Bye!